3 long, agonizing months had passed since the rescue operation began in the freezing wastes of the Ural Mountains. The calendar had turned to May 1959. The brutal winter snows were finally beginning to melt under the pale spring sun, exposing the dark secrets that the mountain had kept hidden. For the search team, the grim discovery of the first 5 hikers, frozen to death in their underwear, was already a living nightmare. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared them for what lay buried under 4 meters of packed snow deep inside a nearby ravine. Just 75 meters away from the cedar tree where the first bodies were found, the searchers spotted something poking through the melting ice. It was a piece of tattered clothing. They began to dig frantically into the frozen mud and slush. There, at the bottom of the ravine, they uncovered the remaining 4 members of the Dyatlov group: Nikolai Thibaut Brignol, Semyon Zolotaryov, Alexander Kolevatov, and Lyudmila Dubinina. At first glance, it appeared they had tried to build a desperate makeshift shelter from the wind. They were found huddled together, almost as if they were trying to keep each other warm in their final moments. But as the bodies were carefully lifted from the ice, the investigators noticed something highly unusual. Unlike the first group, these 4 hikers were wearing more clothes. However, upon closer inspection, the clothes did not belong to them. They were wearing pieces of clothing cut away from the dead bodies of their friends back at the cedar tree. Semyon Zolotaryov was found wearing Dubinina's artificial fur coat and hat. Dubinina's foot was wrapped in a piece of torn trousers that belonged to Yuri Krivonishenko. This meant one terrifying truth. They had survived longer than the others. They had watched their friends freeze to death, stripped the clothes from their corpses in a desperate bid to survive, and then retreated into the dark ravine. But it was not the cold that killed them. When the bodies arrived at the morgue, the lead medical examiner, Dr. Boris Vozrozdeny, conducted the autopsies. What he found defied all logical explanation. While the first 5 hikers died purely of hypothermia, these 4 individuals had suffered horrific, catastrophic internal trauma. Let us look at Nikolai Thibaut Brignol. His skull was completely fractured, with massive bone fragments driven deep into his brain. The force required to cause such damage was immense. Yet strangely, there was no wound on the skin of his scalp. It was as if his skull had been crushed by a massive shock wave, leaving the outer skin perfectly intact. Then, the doctor examined Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov. Their injuries were even more shocking. Both of them had sustained massive, bilateral chest fractures. Their ribs were completely shattered, crushed flat against their internal organs. Dr. Vozrozdeny noted in his official report that the blunt force trauma was so severe it was equivalent to the impact of a high-speed car crash. And yet, the mystery deepened into pure horror. Just like Thibaut Brignol, Dubinina and Zolotaryov had absolutely no external bruises, no open wounds, and no signs of soft tissue damage on their chests. How could someone's ribs be completely crushed into pieces without leaving a single bruise on the skin? Dr. Vozrozdeny stated that it was as if an invisible, immense pressure had squeezed the life out of them, a force far greater than any human hand could ever inflict. But the physical trauma didn't stop there. When the investigators washed the mud from Lyudmila Dubinina's face, the morgue fell into absolute, terrified silence. Dubinina's tongue had been completely removed from the root. Her eyes were gone, leaving empty, hollow sockets staring back at the doctors. Parts of her upper lip and facial tissue were entirely missing. Later, it was discovered that Semyon Zolotaryov was also missing his eyes. How could this happen? Some officials quickly claimed that scavengers, like mice or birds, had eaten the soft tissue after they died. But if animals were responsible, why did they only eat Dubinina's tongue and eyes? Why did they leave the rest of the exposed flesh untouched? And why was there no animal activity on the first 5 bodies? The tissue around Dubinina's mouth showed a complete absence of blood, suggesting her tongue might have been taken while she was still alive, or immediately at the moment of her death. To make matters even more bizarre, the investigators decided to test the clothing of these final 4 hikers with a Geiger counter. The machine began to click frantically. The clothes were highly radioactive. The levels of radiation found on their sweater. Decades have passed since that fateful winter night in 1959. Yet the same haunting question echoes through the frozen peaks of the Ural Mountains. What or who killed the Dyatlov group? Because the Soviet government abruptly closed the case and locked the files away, a massive void was left behind. A void that was quickly filled by countless rumors, speculations, and terrifying theories. When you have 9 elite hikers dead with crushed bones, high levels of radiation, and missing tongues, a simple explanation will never be enough. Let us dive deep into the most prominent theories that try to unlock this dark puzzle. The first, and perhaps most immediate theory investigated by Soviet authorities, was an attack by the local indigenous people, the Mansi tribe. The Ural Mountains were their ancestral home, and Dyatlov was considered a spiritual place. Did the hikers accidentally step onto sacred ground? Did they provoke a violent retaliation? For weeks, investigators hunted for evidence of a tribal ambush, but this theory quickly crumbled into the snow. When rescuers found the tent, there were absolutely no signs of a struggle or hand-to-hand combat. More importantly, the only footprints left in the pristine, heavy snow belonged to the 9 hikers themselves, walking in socks and bare feet. There were no tracks of heavy hunting boots, no signs of horses, and no evidence of anyone else surrounding the camp. The Mansi people were peaceful, and they even helped the Soviet team in the rescue mission. If it wasn't humans, then what did they run from? This brings us to the second, much darker theory, a top-secret Soviet military experiment gone horribly wrong. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was constantly testing advanced weapons, missiles, and experimental aircraft in remote regions. Proponents of this theory point to several bizarre clues. First, the high levels of radiation found on the clothing of the final 4 hikers. Why would ordinary students be contaminated with radiation in the middle of buildings? Second, consider the testimony of another group of hikers who were camping about 50 kilometers away on the exact night of the tragedy. They officially reported seeing strange, glowing orange orbs floating slowly across the night sky toward Dyatlov. What were these mysterious spheres? Were they experimental Soviet missiles, or perhaps chemical weapons? Some theorists believe a missile may have exploded nearby in the atmosphere, releasing a toxic gas, or a terrifying hyperbaric shockwave. This shockwave could explain how the hikers' skulls and ribs were completely crushed from the inside out, without leaving a single bruise on their skin. It would also explain why they cut the tent open in a blind panic. They were suffocating from chemical fumes and needed air immediately. However,
If it was a military cover, why did they leave the bodies and the tent behind for civilian search teams to find? Why not erase the entire campsite? As the military theory left unanswered questions, some looked toward the supernatural, giving birth to the legend of the Soviet Yeti, or the Menk, a mythical forest monster feared by the Mansi tribes. Could an apex predator, a massive creature of prehistoric strength, have terrorized the camp? Believers of this theory point directly to the horrific injuries of Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov. The immense force required to crush a human chest, and the brutal removal of Dubinina's tongue from the root felt like the work of a savage beast. A photo found on the hiker's own camera rolls, the very last frame, out of focus and blurry, shows a dark, towering silhouette standing among the trees in the snow. But skeptics argue that a Yeti attack would leave massive footprints, claw marks, and torn flesh. Yet, the medical reports clearly stated there were no external wounds or scratches on their chests. The bones were broken clean inside. The monster had torn them apart, not crushed them like a hydraulic press, while leaving their skin intact. Then, we enter the realm of science fiction and extraterrestrial forces. Because of these mysterious orange orbs witnessed in the sky, many UFO researchers believe the Dyatlov group encountered something not from this world. Some suggest the hikers were exposed to a form of alien technology or energy beam that caused panic, disorientation, and fatal internal injuries. When the bodies were recovered, relatives at the funerals noted that the skin of the dead hikers had turned deeply unnatural, bright orange-brown color, and their hair had turned premature gray. Was this the result of extreme fear or exposure to an unknown alien?